case you have forgotten just how ridiculously productive this player has been, take a look at these numbers. He has at least 100 receptions in each of his last 6 full seasons. That's the longest such streak in NFL history. The Buccaneers, by the way, have only one season with 100 receptions in franchise history. That was our very own Keyshawn Johnson back in 2001. So let me bring the crew in here as well. And Dan Graziano, let's just make sure there is no mystery in this. This was a Tom Brady-driven move, yes?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, Bruce Arians, the team's head coach, said in the offseason that this was not going to happen, that they weren't going to do it. And he had some negative things to say about Antonio Brown, who he knows from their time together in Pittsburgh. Yet they do it. We know from our reporting in the offseason that Tom Brady was enamored with Antonio Brown the brief time they spent together in New England last year, to the point where he stayed in contact with him and left him voicemail messages saying things like, "Wherever I sign, you're coming with me." Now here he is. There's no question what drove this move in Tampa, and it was the quarterback.
That feels important to me, Dominique, as I consider all of the issues that Antonio Brown has had. And let's keep this to the football perspective. The off-the-field things, some of which are still pending, really not apply here. But with regard to the way he's had trouble with teammates, trouble with coaches, and all the rest of it, it does feel, to me at least, as though that connection to Brady, he's living in his house for crying out loud, does make a difference in my level of confidence in it working out. What do you think, Neek?
Yeah, it absolutely matters that the guy who's deciding where the ball goes, that you are living in one of his guest rooms or maybe a guest house somewhere on his estate. I think that absolutely matters. And AB, if they need to do some more practicing in the backyard to get their timing down, they can do all that. So I think it matters that the guy who seems to be making all the big decisions right now in Tampa, that guy seems to really believe in you and really want you there. So I think that bodes well for AB's production once he finally suits up.
What do you think, Damien Woody?
Listen, I don't worry about Antonio Brown off the field, to be quite honest with you. Antonio Brown knows the reason why he's in Tampa Bay. Okay, Tom Brady. And so I'm pretty sure he feels indebted. And like you said, hell, he's living with Tom Brady. So those guys going to have plenty of time to catch up, get some type of rapport, get some type of chemistry. I think Antonio Brown going to come in, he's going to come in blazing. He's going to come in blazing. I think he's going to be very productive right off the bat, because the one thing we know about Antonio Brown, you can say whatever you want to say off the field. This guy, when it comes to practice and playing, there's no question he was the best receiver in the league for many years.
Look, on a team that already has an astonishing array of offensive weapons, he is the best, and that inclusive of all of them. So, David Pollack, how would you assess how important you think this acquisition is for a Buccaneers team that is already a contender?
Well, I'm not ready to jump in with Wood and say I trust him off the field no matter who's with him. I mean, I don't trust Antonio Brown. He's proven not to be trustworthy off the field. But on the field now, you think about Evans on one side, who, by the way, he's a problem. I mean, that dude, his size and speed, and Tom Brady's going to look for him in the red zone. Put Antonio Brown on the other side, and now Rob Gronkowski in the middle to work the field. Dude, I mean, Tom Brady's going to be very happy. His ability to go through his progressions and make this, I mean, goodness gracious, this offense is going to go from a really good offense that we really like them to a championship level offense immediately when you got a guy that's that freaky on one side, the other side, and the middle. Good luck stopping him.
Yeah, I think the dude somehow there was the perfect analysis of what it's going to be like trying to stop that offense. And so I guess it does beg the question, and someone wrote it down for me here, and I kind of like it. Is there such a thing as having too many weapons, Dominique? Is there ever a concern that there's only one football and all of these mouths to feed, if you will, on the offense?
Yeah, I think we could go back to the Browns last year, and when it's kind of an immature, underdeveloped team that's trying to figure out its identity, I think that could be a problem, trying to feed all the mouths. But when you have a team that I think that is led by Tom Brady and is making all the decisions and kind of understands what kind of offense they want to be, as long as your players are comfortable with buying in, which it seems like they are right now, I don't think having too many weapons is a problem.
Honestly, Damien Woody, and you played with Brady at the very beginning of his career, so obviously he didn't have nearly the stature in the game that he has now. But if there is a concern on the part of one of the receivers complaining about not getting the ball thrown his way, how does a quarterback like Brady handle that?
Greeny, he's going to put them in check real quick. I mean, these guys are so happy to be playing with the quarterback, the caliber of Tom Brady. Listen, at the end of the day, all these guys want to do is win a chip, man. Okay, it doesn't matter If you're one of those guys, one of those skill position guys, it doesn't matter that you've accumulated all those things unless you go out there and win a championship. And guess what you got at the quarterback position? You got a guy that's won 6 Super Bowl titles. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at all.
Very
I don't think
quickly.
it's that easy though, but I'm sorry, Greeny.
Yeah.
I just think that if they're not winning, if they start losing, that's a problem. If they're winning and guys aren't getting as much targets as they want, then it's no problem.
Well,
but if they
Dominique,
start losing
that's
and Tom Brady puts them in check, like they're grown men who are Pro Bowlers, future Hall of Famers on that roster, you don't just go put them in check. Like that's just not how it works.
I mean, Dom, I mean, that's it. I mean, come on, that's common sense. Any team, if you start losing, I don't care who you have back there. Yeah, there are people going to be making some noise, but I don't expect them to be going out there and losing a bunch of games.
They're 6-2 at this point. Very quickly, Dan Graziano, just remind us, there is still an open investigation on the part of the NFL. So there is still potentially another shoe that could drop in this story.
Yeah, and there's a court proceeding coming up in December that the NFL has its eye on. Obviously, the allegations against Antonio Brown off the field, as you mentioned, Greeny, very, very serious. We don't want to make light of them, but people should know that there is a chance that a suspension could be reimposed if more information comes to light on that front.
So that is certainly something to keep an eye on, both from a football perspective and, as you say, appropriately, much more significantly than anything that will happen on the field. Meanwhile, other news from the National Football League yesterday. The Green Bay Packers will be without Jamal Williams and Kamal Martin because of the league's COVID protocol after both were deemed to be high-risk close contacts of A.J. Dillon, who got a positive test result on Monday. Elsewhere, the Ravens have identified 7 high-risk close contacts after Marlon Humphrey tested positive on Monday. Those contacts will isolate. They can be available to play Sunday if they pass testing for 5 days. Broncos president of football operations and legend John Elway, along with the president of the team, Joe Ellis, have tested positive for the coronavirus. They are isolating at home ahead of their game at the Falcons. And the Cowboys will be without Andy Dalton for a second straight game, not because of the concussion that he sustained 2 weeks ago, but because he has been placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. And so we've heard about new protocols and how they are being brought into the NFL right now. Dan Graziano, why are they making these changes?
Because the science and their understanding of it continues to evolve. This is not the first time they've changed the protocols, and it's not going to be the last. The big changes that stand out from yesterday's document, the memo that went out to teams, are about sideline mask wearing. They want to really strongly encourage players to wear masks on the sidelines during games, and especially while they're interacting with each other on the field after games. The league has identified these as possible transmission points during games. They're not as concerned with teams transmitting it from one team to the other in terms of playing the game. They don't believe the amount of close contact you have during the playing of the game is as troublesome as spending a few minutes talking to somebody after the game. So they're extending the area, the bench area on the sidelines, so that players can distance from each other better during games, and they want them to wear masks, and they're going to continue to evaluate what their points of transmission are and what the risks are, and try and work around that the best they can.
So in our meeting this morning, Dominique brought up a really interesting question that I'm sure a lot of people who pay attention to the sport are wondering about. Go ahead, Nick. Dan Graziano has your answer.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just wondering how we could do something about the fact that players are testing positive, like the Marlon Humphreys one and Stephon Gilmore, the morning after playing a game. Like, to me, you can't have players on the field in that situation. I don't understand how the protocols don't update to accommodate for that externality.
Yeah, and look, they're testing them on the morning of the game, but they don't get the test result back until the next day. So the test that came back positive Monday for Marlon Humphrey, for example, for A.J. Dillon, for example, were tests that were administered pregame. Now, obviously, if they get the test result back before the game or during the game, as the league said yesterday, they will remove that player or coach or staffer from the game immediately. But the key thing to understand is this was never about avoiding positive tests. It's about avoiding and limiting spread. So it's even more important than did he test positive. It's, okay, he tested positive. We got to get him isolated at home. We got to find out who he's been in close contact with. We got to get them isolated at home. We got to make sure this doesn't become an outbreak and put a lot of people in serious jeopardy. So until they can get to the point where you can get a reliable test result in 20 minutes, then you're going to be able to have guys test positive or test on game morning and only find out about it after the game.
And you brought up one very important point that I'm sure a lot of fans have in their minds, because we just saw this at the World Series with Justin Turner.
Yes.
They did say that if they got a result back during a game, what would they do?
They would remove the player or coach or staffer from the game immediately and begin the contact tracing process.
You got this from a conference call yesterday?
Yeah, Dr. Alan Sills, the league's chief medical officer, on a conference call with reporters yesterday, said that explicitly.
Yeah, so obviously, again, again, that teams and the leagues can learn from their